I used to fear food and see my plate as a math equation. Not because of calories, but because I never knew what it would do to my blood sugars. See, sometimes I'd spike so fast, I thought my insulin went bad. Other times I'd just crash out of nowhere, just sitting at my desk, right? But it wasn't the food, and it wasn't even the insulin. Today I want to talk a bit about the one variable that I was missing in my meals that made everything finally click. I want to talk to you about why eating the right food, the healthy food, still led to blood sugar chaos, and the 3 rules that I discovered that turned every meal into a data point instead of a gamble. How to develop certainty around food again, understand and predict where the blood sugars are going to go. See, the truth is, it was how I was approaching the entire system of eating. And this isn't about eating clean, it's about eating smart. Now, I'm Matt Van de Vecht. I'm a T1D expert, certified master fitness trainer and nutritionist, best-selling author, and Ironman athlete. And for years, my meals felt like a roulette. I'd test new diets, new macros, new timing, and still get unpredictable results. So I ran a multi-year experiment using my CGM, macro tracking, and insulin timing, the data to find the perfect diabetic meal plan, if it existed, right? One that could deliver stable post-meal glucose, diverse nutrients, and flexibility for real-life scenarios. What I found changed how I eat forever. Because the truth isn't that one diet works best, it's that consistency does. And today, because I know that sounds terrible and boring, I'll show you how every diet can work for you if you understand the rules behind your body's responses. So let's start with my favorite part, the science behind it all. See, when you eat, your blood sugar response depends on how and what you eat, how it's built, right? How fast it digests. So carbs, proteins, and fats all move through your system at different speeds. And that's the foundation of every diet's effect on your glucose that you see on your CGM. So your CGM's giving you information, giving you feedback on what this food is doing in your body, right? So carbohydrates are the quickest. Simple sugars enter your bloodstream in minutes, right? When you treat a low blood sugar, real quick, thankfully. While complex starches take longer depending on their structure and preparation, right? So, and this is a fun fact for you, boiled potatoes spike faster than cooled ones because of the starch crystallization, which scientists call resistant starch formation. When they're cooled down, bonus points if they're cooked and then cooled and then reheated, that's going to have the lowest impact on your blood sugars as a true resistant starch. But fun fact, that's starches. So potatoes and pasta, the foods that are harder to eat, fresh pasta, more likely to spike blood sugars versus cooked, cooled, and reheated pasta. It responds more like a fiber. Speaking of fiber, but also proteins and fats, slow that process of carbohydrate digestion and conversion to glucose dramatically, meaning the same carb can hit differently depending on what else is on your plate, right? So if you ever have a tough time with a certain type of carb, like, oh, I can't have bananas. What else can I balance my plate with? To have a banana that is then slowed down. So if you want to have a banana for breakfast, throw some eggs in there. Got fats and proteins, right? So proteins digest slower, roughly 2 to 4 hours. And they stimulate hormones, actually. So you should know about this. They stimulate hormones like GLP-1 and GIP that slow gastric emptying and extend satiety, or the feeling of fullness, which is why you're seeing a spike in interest for GLP-1 prescriptions. And let me know if you want a video on that next. We can get into that if you want. But for those of us with type 1, that means that protein-heavy meals often lead to smaller initial spikes, followed by a delayed rise several hours later as amino acids convert to glucose. Okay, so this is the process known as gluconeogenesis, where proteins convert into glucose. It just takes a long time. So with that said, fats, because this is the third macronutrient, fats are the slowest digesting of all, sometimes 6 hours or more. You ever wonder why you have a delayed impact at 4 o'clock in the morning after a heavy fat dinner? This is a big part of the reason, right? They delay stomach emptying. They slow your insulin absorption. That can cause late glucose rises long after you've finished eating. They don't create sharp peaks typically, but they stretch the curve into a slow wave and can lead into those stubborn highs that you may have seen stick around for hours on end, often making us feel like our insulin isn't working, right? Or maybe that's just me, but I've thought I must be injecting water because this is not bringing my blood sugars down. So if carbs are the sprinters, proteins are the middle distance runners, and fats are the marathoners, right? The key to blood sugar control is matching your insulin's timing to the race that's happening in your gut. So rapid acting insulin typically peaks around 60 to 90 minutes, which is great for carb heavy meals, but with higher fat or protein content, you may need to split dosing. You might need to consider extended boluses if you're on an insulin pump like me, or even staged injections to match the delayed digestion. Now, there are different types of insulin that can be helpful here, but we're not going to get into that one on this video. Now, movement after meals acts like a bonus lever. It's like a 10-minute walk can lower the peak by increasing glucose uptake through muscle contraction. So yes, walking the dog after dinner actually helps, right? Now, the family walk that you might have helps too. Now, once you understand digestion speed, insulin timing, and absorption, you realize it's not just what you eat, it's when and how your body processes it. Does that make sense? Now, let's talk about the big question, right? Which diet is best? So I tested them all. Keto, plant-based, low-fat, whole food plant-based, Mediterranean, paleo. My favorite test though, eat everything. And what I discovered shocked me and will probably shock you too. They all worked and they all failed, depending on whether or not I followed their rules consistently. So let's break it down. Keto or low carb diets work because they nearly eliminate the fast digesting carbs that spike blood sugar, right? You eat mostly fats and proteins, so the curve is slower and flatter, but there's a trade-off. So you have some micronutrient gaps, you have reduced fiber and limited flexibility, right? When you fall off the strict carb limits, you have a night out, chaos absolutely returns. We hear about it all the time, which can reinforce the false belief that carbs are the devil for diabetics, right? That you can't have carbs. So that's one of the things that we can touch on. Now, low-fat, plant-based or vegan diets work well for many because they're rich in fiber, the opposite, right? You have antioxidants and complex carbohydrates that are full of fiber that do slow digestion and improve insulin sensitivity, or also reduce insulin resistance because of the lack of fat content, right? But they also require precision portion control. You got to measure out those carbs because, as we talk about the law of small numbers, less carbs, less insulin, more room for error. With higher carb, you typically have higher doses of insulin, which means there's a higher risk or a higher margin of error. So you do have to actually measure your food. Get out the cup measurement, the food scale, whatever it is, right? That said, portion control and pre-bolus timing are everything. Now, one big rice bowl eaten too quickly can still cause a spike. That being said, because of a reduced fat intake, your body can handle carbs and process them better. Insulin is more effective, so you can get away with it a little bit more. It's really interesting. Now, the Mediterranean diet works well because it balances macros. So proteins, fibers, healthy fats, and moderate carbs. It provides the widest micronutrient range. It's also the most studied diet, fun fact for you. It supports longevity and offers flexibility, but it still demands consistency. Consistent portions, timing, and awareness of how each meal's speed affects you. And it can be easy to go off track too because of the lack of rules, right? There is no rule of no carbs or no fat. It's like, hey, just balance it out. So it's easier to get off track. But the point is this. Every diet can stabilize blood sugar if you apply its rules consistently. So instead of asking which diet is the best for me, ask which diet am I willing to make work for me? Now, here's the real epiphany that I had. Consistency is control. I realized that every diet I tried, vegan, keto, paleo, it worked when I followed it with precision, and it failed when I didn't. Right? The difference wasn't the food, it was the framework. And if I can switch between diets without a loss of control, then there is no one special diet, no matter how cult-like they make it feel. You know what I'm talking about, all right? These cult-like diet communities, right? So here's the choice you have to make. It's either consistency based in restriction or freedom based in formulas. Both work. I want to be clear about that. They both work. Restriction-based consistency means you pick one strict system like keto or low-fat vegan, and you follow it religiously, cult-like. I'm not joking. I've been in those groups. You know it feels like that. Your glucose stays predictable because your inputs never change. You pick low carb, you stay low carb. Therefore, your insulin resistance isn't changing day to day. You pick high carb, you stay high carb because you're not changing your inputs. That's why those work. Whatever the diet is you've been following, I have to stay with this diet because it's the one diet that worked. It's the one diet that you've stayed with because either it was sustainable and you liked it, or you saw control and you felt locked into it. That's the reality. It's a hard truth, but it's true. That's control through limitation. Okay. And when I talk about these cult-like groups, I'm not necessarily knocking them. I'm just saying they're operating on an incomplete picture, right? They found a diet that works and then decided for everyone, that's the one diabetic diet. That's the one that's going to work for everyone without trying everything else or digging into the science. The issue here is that they are promoting a diet blindly, not realizing that any diet can work for anyone. And unfortunately, when you have blind statements like that being thrown around the internet, it just becomes a popularity contest, and you look for the person who sounds the most like what you want to become. So I am here to tell you, you can pick whatever one you want, just make sure it's sustainable. Make sure it aligns with your goals, make sure you actually want to eat the food, and then build your strategies and your formulas around that. Which brings me to your formula-based consistency. On the other hand, this means that you understand the formulas, how carbs, fats, and proteins digest, how they affect your glucose, and how to time insulin accordingly. See, we have this cool thing with insulin-dependent diabetes where when we have to give the insulin ourselves, we get to decide when we introduce the insulin. I actually made another video a couple years ago where I challenged my wife, who is not a diabetic, to a Chipotle meal. And I said, let's see who can keep their blood sugars more stable. You can go watch that video for the full story, but spoiler alert, I won. I had more stable blood sugars because her pancreas does not release insulin until she eats. I got to decide that I'm taking my insulin 20 minutes before, solid pre-bolus, and my blood sugars didn't budge. It's possible, okay? But that's kind of the point too, is you get to determine when you introduce the insulin. I'm getting too excited here. You get to decide that, which means you can manipulate your blood sugars with more precision than a non-diabetic could because you're delivering exogenous insulin. They have endogenous or internal. You have exogenous. You get to decide when it's introduced. How cool is that? It's frustrating too because we have to. You don't have a choice. It's a survival thing. But just take that with a grain of salt. Just understand you hold the power there. And you can switch between diets when you understand these concepts, right? You can switch between meals and lifestyles because you know how to adapt your strategy. That's control through knowledge. So yes, the keto diet works. The vegan diet works. The paleo diet works. They all work if you follow the rules consistently. But the real mastery is being able to move fluidly between them without fear. So on Meatless Monday, you can enjoy a vegan dinner with your family. On Tuesday, you go to a Brazilian barbecue. You simply pull out a different profile out of your back pocket, different insulin timing, different digestion speeds, different rules, and you stay in range through all of it. That's the power of personalization, creating your own formulas. It's not about restriction. It's about fluency. You don't need the perfect diet. You need a framework that adapts, and that is the key. And here's how that framework looks. So rule number 1, predict. Understand the speed of your meal. Fast carbs, pre-bolus earlier. Slow meal, stage your insulin or add a short walk. You have to adjust, okay? So predict where it's gonna go, adjust. Rule number 2 is balance. Build your plate with proteins, fibers, color, smart carbs, healthy fats, nutrient-dense foods. Balance doesn't mean perfection. It means matching digestion speed to insulin action. Rule number 3, adapt. Use your CGM data to refine your personal macronutrient profile. We set these up with our private T1D clients, but you can start the process on your own before even working with us. In fact, I encourage it. Then we can just fine tune once you get in, right? But it allows you to make progress right now. Track your patterns, We're not looking for perfection. Once you know your ratios of protein, fat, and carbs, your macronutrient fingerprint, which is unique to you and what you want out of your diabetes and your life, you can make any diet work for you. If you want to take this further, my team and I built a system to help you develop that personalized macronutrient profile, the same process I use daily to keep my blood sugar stable while living flexibly. I mean, I'm currently sitting at 99% time in range for the last 90 days. And the 90 days before that were essentially the same. That's while traveling, eating pancakes, burgers, tacos, and cake. With the right blood sugar formula in place, you can make life what you want again. Experience freedom again. That's the most powerful part of all of this, is getting to a place where you're free and not chained down by diabetes. Now, the most powerful crutch in diabetes management isn't a diet. It's consistency, built on awareness, right? The most powerful tool in diabetes management isn't a diet. It's blood sugar formulas built on patterns. So you don't need to eat perfectly. You just need to eat predictably. So here's my challenge for you. Pick one meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and eat the same meal every day for 1 week. Track your CGM trend. Watch how your numbers change when you keep the rules consistent. And when I first tested this, by the way, because I experimented on myself for over 2 years, every single day was an experiment so that I can teach on this stuff. Okay. This was while I was getting my certifications as a master fitness trainer and nutritionist as well, to have the context needed. I'd eat the same breakfast for months on end and only swap out one ingredient at a time to test for a week or two to rule out the outliers and look for patterns, right? So I'd have toast with butter and a protein shake. And then I'd have toast with peanut butter and a protein shake. And then I'd have just plain bread and then a protein shake, right? One thing to isolate these variables. And, noting things like adding peanut butter to a fruit smoothie would dampen the glucose spike by 50% because the high fat content when compared to a fruit-only smoothie, right? But then realizing that it wasn't just the peanut butter that made it magic, even though I think peanut butter has some kind of magic in it. It's delicious. I can't live without it. But it was any fat, right? So coconut milk in the smoothie, avocado, or even butter, right? Then once you've built your baselines, start testing the formulas, swap the fats, add protein, change meal order. You'll begin to see patterns. This is your body's code, right? We all respond differently, so it does have to be yours. What works for me might not work for you. I had tacos and peanut butter cups for lunch today. It's a weird combo, but it was delicious. And in my tacos, I had eggs, I had some rice. I was kind of just adding together leftovers, but that's the point. I can do that. I've maintained 100% time in range for just about a week. I think tomorrow marks a week, because of personalized macronutrient profiles, understanding what these swaps and exchanges look like. It's not just one diet that works. And I wish I could shout this from the rooftops, but this is the best I can get right now, is shouting into this mic. There is no one specific diet that works for diabetes, and you have to pick that one diet. It's whatever diet works for you, so long as you understand the moving pieces that impact blood sugars, which means you get to build your own diet. You can make it whatever you want it to be. That's when food stops being feared. It becomes freedom, because it's not the food, it's the framework. In fact, if you want my exact meal framework and an overview of the personalized macronutrient profiles, comment blood sugar below. I'll send it to you. Okay, I want you to experience this freedom, because food used to be a math equation. I'd stare at my plate and I start crunching numbers and then eat it. I didn't get to enjoy it anymore. Now I get to have things like pizza and pasta and sushi. I don't eat it every day. It's probably not the healthiest, so it's a once in a while thing, but I can. And I want that flexibility and that freedom for you too. And on that note, a bonus, because you stayed till the end with me through my rants. Here's my 3-step framework that I walk through with my private clients on discovering the perfect diet for them. Their diet must fit into 3 categories. Number 1, does it align with your goals? Are you trying to lose weight? You're trying to put on muscle? You're trying to travel the world and experience global cuisine? line it up. Number 2, is it sustainable for you? I can tell you exactly what to eat, but if you hate it, you're going to revert back to old habits in no time. For example, if you're an animal rights activist vegan and you think you're supposed to eat meat, it's not going to work out very well, is it? Right? Now, number 3, build the blood sugar rules. Every diet comes with rules. So does every body. Your physical body responds differently. We build the pre-bolus timing, the insulin to carb ratios, insulin to protein, insulin to fat, extended bolus timers, and on and on and on. Strategy must match the situation. Stop listening to these cult-like cookie cutter advices on the internet. It works at first, but it'll trap you in restriction long-term and build up to regret. Trust me, I've been there. So let me know if this was helpful. My goal is to see you win. Eat smart, live free, and I'll see you in the next one. And keep up the fight.